Hi, I'm Zeke with the Eastside Church of Christ in Baytown, Texas. I'm your host for this week's Eastside 5x5x5 Bible Reading Summary. This is the week for May 9th through the 15th, 2021. We're going to be looking at chapters 18 through 22 of the book of Acts, so let's talk about it. In Acts chapter 18, Paul is moving on to his next efforts, which will be in the city of Corinth, which was not only a vital commercial center, it was a melting pot of different cultures, philosophies, religions, and it was a hotbed of sin. But there too, the Jews turn against him. Brought before a Roman proconsul, the charges are dismissed, and the Jews take out their frustration on the leader of the synagogue. Sometime later, Paul moves on to Ephesus, where he promises to return to them later. After going back to his home base of Syrian Antioch, he decides to pass through the church once again. Meanwhile, Priscilla and Aquila are giving Apollos a much-needed lesson on the nature of baptism in Christ. Acts chapter 19 has Paul making good on his promise to return to Ephesus, the site of a spectacular temple and home to a cult of the goddess Artemis, or Diana as she's better known. At first, he teaches in the synagogue, then he moves to a school where he teaches for 2 years. The craftsmen who make their money on Artemis relics instigate a riot against Paul, and the city official has to break things up. In Acts 20, Paul moves on to other regions and sets his sights on Jerusalem. He spends some time observing the Lord's Supper with Christians in Troas, exhorting elders from Ephesus and the nearby town of Miletus, and emphasizes to them their role as shepherds of God's flock. Moving on to Acts chapter 21, we see where Paul moves from Miletus by sailing on and eventually landing at Tyre, which is north of Palestine. He begins to make his way southward toward Jerusalem, and he visits with brethren at Caesarea, where he's warned by a prophet named Agabus about the persecution that he'll face in Jerusalem. Paul is undaunted. He arrives in Jerusalem, and he's received warmly by the brethren. But again, the Jews accuse him, this time of desecrating the temple, and they instigate a mob against him. Saving Paul from what would be certain death, the Roman commander allows him to speak to the hostile mob. And chapter 22 of Acts has Paul's defense before that mob. He states his credentials as a pious Jew, relates the story of his conversion on his way to Damascus. But when he says that God has sent him to the Gentiles, the crowd erupts in anger and cries out for his death. The Roman commander, at a loss for a solution, hopes to sort out the situation by bringing Paul before the governing council of the Jews. Well, that's where our story leaves us at this time. What do you think will happen when Paul is brought before the governing council of the Jews? Knowing Paul's track record with them, how do you think that will go? We'll find out next time. Thanks for joining us, and we hope we'll see you then. God bless you, and happy reading.